Chapter 1. The Quiet House. Ethan and Laura had been married for 14 years. From the outside, their life seemed flawless: tidy house, stable jobs, a healthy child, and friends who admired the calm balance of their relationship. But appearances often mask the truth. Behind the neat routines and polite smiles, a quiet emptiness had grown, almost imperceptibly, until it became undeniable. Every morning followed a ritual. Ethan woke early, checked emails, and left for work. Laura stayed behind, preparing breakfast, organizing schedules, helping their daughter Emily get ready for school. Their conversations were limited to reminders and instructions, devoid of curiosity or warmth. Love had quietly transformed into coordination. Emotional presence had vanished. Laura often remembered their early years. They had spoken endlessly about fears, dreams, ambitions, and secrets. Those nights faded. Silence replaced them. She told herself it was adulthood, that passion naturally shifts over time. But deep inside, she longed to feel noticed, to have someone ask how she truly felt, to be acknowledged. Instead, she had disappointment, presenting calm and competence to avoid conflict. Ethan believed he was doing everything right. Work, loyalty, providing stability, all proof of love in his mind. He didn't understand why Laura seemed distant or why she no longer laughed at his jokes. Emotional connection, he thought, was secondary. Effort was enough. Emily noticed before her parents did. Children sense what adults ignore. She observed the subtle coldness at the dinner table, fleeting hugs, the absence of spontaneous laughter. She felt the tension even when Ethan and Laura tried to hide it. Over the years, Ethan and Laura stopped living with each other emotionally. They shared a home but existed in parallel worlds. Silence became comfortable. Comfort replaced intimacy, and the house, once warm, now felt hollow. Chapter 2. The question that unraveled everything. The moment that would change everything came quietly, without shouting or tears. One evening, after dinner, Laura began clearing the dishes. Her movements were deliberate, calm, yet weighted with intention. Finally, she spoke. "Do you ever feel lonely, even when I'm right here?" Ethan froze. He had anticipated many difficult conversations over the years, but none that pierced the emptiness between them so directly. "No," he said after a pause, defensive without realizing it. "I don't see why I should." Laura nodded slowly. The gesture carried years of unspoken disappointment. "What about me?" she asked. "Do you ever wonder how I feel?" The silence that followed was suffocating. Ethan felt vulnerable for the first time in years. Words pressed against his chest, refusing to leave. I'm here. I do everything I'm supposed to. What more do you want from me?" Laura met his eyes. "I don't want more," she said quietly. "I want different." Her words shattered invisible walls Ethan had built around himself. He realized that effort alone was insufficient. Presence, understanding, emotional connection, these were essential. Love without feeling was no longer love. It was habit. That night, they went to bed facing opposite directions. Sleep came reluctantly. Silence, once a refuge, now revealed truths they had avoided for years. Ethan reflected on the years of doing everything right while missing the essence of connection entirely. Chapter 3. Weeks of distance. Weeks passed. Conversations became polite and shallow. Therapy was suggested, then postponed, then forgotten. Fear guided every step: fear of change, fear of conflict, fear of admitting failure. Ethan finally spoke aloud what both had known but avoided. "We're holding on out of habit, not love," he admitted one morning. Laura felt relief mingled with grief. Relief that honesty had finally arrived, grief that it had taken so long to confront. They decided to separate, not with drama, shouting, or confrontation. Slowly, deliberately, painfully. Paperwork replaced promises. Practicality replaced emotion. They had to tell Emily, which was the hardest task of all. They promised respect, stability, and cooperation, even while internally shaken. Life apart felt strange. Rooms that had been shared now felt empty. Evenings stretched long and quiet. Memories appeared unbidden, triggered by objects, scents, or sounds. Yet, within that emptiness was space to breathe, reflect, rediscover themselves. Laura reclaimed fragments of herself buried beneath habit and responsibility. Ethan confronted emotions long ignored. Neither felt triumphant, but both found honesty. They were adults facing reality, not enemies. Growth came quietly. Chapter 4 of Emotional Reckoning. In the following months, Ethan began to examine his own emotional blindness. He reflected on the years he had equated stability with love, effort with affection. He realized that true connection required vulnerability. Simple gestures, words spoken with care, and attention to emotion mattered far more than bills paid or chores completed. Laura, in turn, confronted the ways she had silenced her feelings to maintain peace. She acknowledged that hiding disappointment, masking loneliness, and avoiding confrontation had contributed to the emotional distance. She learned to honor her feelings, to express them calmly but firmly, and to assert her needs without fear of rejection. They began communicating with honesty rather than habit. Small conversations about Emily's school, their schedules, and even casual interactions were imbued with intention. Listening replaced arguing. Understanding replaced judgment. Chapter 5. Emily. In between, Emily had noticed the shift early on. At first, she was confused and anxious, but she also began to see that love could exist without cohabitation. Ethan and Laura's honesty and respect toward each other taught her that sometimes people care deeply but must take separate paths. They involved Emily in age-appropriate discussions, answering her questions about the change in their household. They emphasized that family was not defined by living under one roof but by care, trust, and mutual respect. Emily gradually adapted, feeling secure because of the emotional honesty of both parents. Chapter 6. Rediscovering self. Living separately allowed both Ethan and Laura to reconnect with themselves. Laura pursued hobbies she had abandoned, reignited old friendships, and explored passions she had ignored for years. Ethan learned to embrace feelings he had long suppressed and to communicate openly with those he loved. They dated cautiously, explored new social circles, and rebuilt their identities as individuals, not just as spouses or parents. They discovered that the core of love was not ownership or habit but authenticity and presence. Chapter 7. Moving forward. Months turned into a year. Emily thrived in the new arrangement. Ethan and Laura occasionally met to discuss her needs or to acknowledge shared responsibilities. There was no bitterness, no lingering resentment, only understanding. Ethan realized that effort without connection was hollow. Laura understood that silence could be more damaging than conflict. Both accepted that endings are sometimes the only way to preserve integrity, love, and growth. They did not rebuild their marriage, but they rebuilt respect and emotional honesty. They discovered that letting go was not failure, it was freedom. In the quiet aftermath, they finally heard themselves and each other deeply and without fear.